are now on the chapter 3 no, of our lessons. Nasa midterms na tayo. Okay, so for this meeting, we will be discussing about the constitutional and statutory rights of persons affected or subject by police or law enforcement operations. No? Bakit important na malaman natin yung mga rights of these persons na maaaring maging affected ng police or law enforcement operations? Because we will also talk about the police operations. And it is important na alam ng police officers kung ano ang rights no, ng of these persons no, na maaaring maging subject ng operations ng police officers. And it is also important for us no, na alam natin ano ang ating constitutional and statutory rights. Because we cannot say no, one day we might also face some cases. But I hope not. No? And of course, dapat kayo yung maging law enforcers dyan. Okay, so next slide. So we aim to learn no, for this meeting, or we aim to understand and recognize the constitutional and statutory rights of persons affected or subject by police or law enforcement operations. And the highlighted part, no, ito yung important, that we internalize and adopt the constitutional and statutory rights of persons affected by law enforcement operations and apply these constitutional and statutory rights in given situations. There might be some situations where we need to apply this, particularly sa mga situational questions. Yan. So, we're talking about our course, no? Yan, particularly sa board exam. May mga questions na maaaring may situations na ibibigay dyan. And it is important na maalala ninyo yung mga rights na yan. Yan. So, let's now start the discussion. So, we have statutory rights and constitutional rights. Ano nga ba yung pinagkaiba ni statutory rights and ni constitutional rights? So, you have your statutory rights. Now, these are your legal rights given by the local and national ruling of our government. Ibig sabihin, the laws created by our legislative, the legislative branch of the government. And ito yung importance sa statutory rights. They are generally designed to protect citizens. So these rights no, are designed for your protection. They are stated or makikita yan sa provisions ng ating laws. And they are typically enforced by local law enforcement, and violation usually carries a penalty of legal prosecution and punishment. Meaning, if your statutory rights are violated, no, you can sue that person, and that person may be penalized for the violation of your statutory rights. Now, sa constitutional naman, it's very easy, no? Andyan na sa name niya, constitutional. These are our constitutional rights. Saan makikita ang ating constitutional rights? In our Constitution, particularly the 1987 Philippine Constitution. So, these constitutional rights can be a prerogative or a duty, a power or a restraint of power recognized and established by a sovereign state or union of states. And these rights may be expressly stipulated in our Constitution. Saan makikita ang ating Bill of Rights in your 1987 Philippine Constitution? That is Article 3, the Bill of Rights. So, those are your constitutional rights. Lahat na nandyan sa Bill of Rights, constitutional rights. Ayan. So, they may be inferred from the language of a national constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. Diba? Ang ating constitution is the highest law of the land. Meaning that laws that contradict it are considered unconstitutional and invalid. And I have also mentioned that to you. Diba? If laws created are are not in line no sa inyong constitution, sa ating constitution, at dineclare na itong law na to is unconstitutional, ibig sabihin, this law is null and void. Ibig sabihin, hindi valid yung law na yan. Okay? Yan. And, that's it, no? Your statutory rights and constitutional rights. So, example of statutory rights. Example dyan, yung compensation and benefits. For example, you are employed. So, your compensation and benefits are protected by the law. And this is your statutory rights. Yan. And statutory, this is something that is fixed, authorized, or established by statute. Yan. Example nga, compensation and benefits, or yung employment insurance. So, for those who are employed, no, you can also check these benefits and these insurances. Yan, for your own good. And, of course, hindi rin mawawala yung ating human rights. Lahat tayo may human rights. Even those who are arrested. Even those who are already convicted. They have human rights. Human rights, hindi na yan maaalis sa atin. But there are some rights na nawawala because of violations of law, such as yung right to liberty. Diba? If you are locked up in jail, you are not free. So, your right to liberty is not exercised. Pero ano nga ba yung human rights? These are the basic rights and freedoms that all human beings have. As long as you are a person, you have human rights. They are inherent. Sabihin, no, hindi pa tayo pinapanganak. Actually, we already have these rights, no, these human rights. And regardless of your nationality, anumang nationality mo, no, whether you are a Filipino, Chinese, American, European, no, any nationality. Yan. Kahit ano pang nationality mo, you have rights. No? Kahit saan ka pa nakatira, you have rights. Kahit ano pang sex mo, whether you are a male, female, or yung mga members ng ating LGBTQ, you have rights. Yan. Your national or ethnic origin, Kapampangan ka man, Ilocano ka, Visayan, you have rights. No? Ano mga skin color natin? You have fair skin, you have brown skin, you still have rights. Ano mga religion mo? No, Catholic, what else? INC. Yan. So, any religion, you have rights. Ano mga language ang sinasabi mo? Or ano mga status mo? You have rights. Okay. These human rights in particular. We are all equally entitled to our human rights without discrimination. No one should discriminate us. No? And when it comes to rights. And these rights are all interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible. And so that is our human rights. Yan. Now, let's talk about Miranda Doctrine or the Miranda rights. So, isa din sa rights that we should know. And when it comes to police or law enforcement operations. And us as civilians, no, as individuals, we should also know this Miranda Doctrine or the Miranda rights. So, your Miranda Doctrine means that prior to questioning during custodial investigation, the person must be warned. Yan. Your Miranda rights serves as the warning that he has the right to remain silent. And so, one of your Miranda rights, that any statement he gives may be used as evidence against him, and that he has the right to the presence of an attorney, the right to counsel, either retained or appointed. So, saan ba nanggaling yung Miranda rights na yan? Now, if you still remember or if you're familiar with the case of Miranda versus Arizona, yeah, so your Miranda rights were created in 1966 as a result of the United States Supreme Court case Miranda versus Arizona. Do not forget Miranda versus Arizona. Okay, this is important. Ano nga ba yung nilalaman ng ating Miranda rights or Miranda warning? First, the right to remain silent. You have the right to remain silent. Number 2, anything you say can be used and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney or to a counsel. And, for example, no, this person is a poor person, hindi niya afford ang services of a counsel because the services of a counsel is expensive. So, anong gagawin ng government? The government will provide one for that person. And when you give the Miranda warning, do not forget to ask if that person understands those statements, the Miranda warning. Dapat naiintindihan niya yan. For example, sinabi mo yan in English, hindi pala nakakaintindi ng English yung tao yan. That Miranda warning is not acceptable or not effective. So, dapat naiintindihan niya yan. Dapat naiintindihan niya yung rights. Binibigyan nga natin siya ng warning. Para alam niya kung ano yung mga actions na gagawin niya at ano yung actions niya na maaaring ikapahamak niya. Ayan. Okay, so we only have 4 minutes left. No? End ko lang saglit because yun na, 4 minutes na lang natitira. Same link pa rin. Join na lang tayo. Ayan. So, why should PNP must promote and protect the human rights? So, we have a legal basis here. No? The 1997 Human Rights and Law Enforcement Training Manual. The 1997 Human Rights and Law Enforcement Training Manual published by the United Nations. So, this is mandated by the United Nations. And the Philippines, no, our country, is a member of the United Nations. So, isa din sa mga i-implement natin are the international laws, no, or mga international mandates from the United Nations. So, what does it state? No? According to our 1997 Human Rights and Law Enforcement Training Manual, it is important that the law enforcement must promote and protect human rights because it adversely affects public trust and confidence towards police. And of course, no, as the ones who will serve and protect, it is important na mapangalagaan yung ating human rights. It affects public trust and confidence. And as we all know, ang public trust and confidence, no, importante yan to the police. So that the police, no, will have a good image in the public. So that the public will cooperate with the police. Kung may mga operations ang police officers natin, saan yung gagawin? In the community. Kung nasaan yung mga tao. Of course, if these people do not trust the police officers, what will happen? And of course, they will not help the police. Importante na may cooperation ang public. Okay? And it will also lead to isolation of the police from the community and civil unrest. Dahil nga walang public trust and confidence, no, yung mga tao sa police officers. And it will hamper effective prosecution of criminals. Imagine, no, the criminal went to this area. Yan, for example, yung mga slum areas. Yan. And if these people, no, will not help the police officers, what will happen? Madali lang makakatakas yung mga criminals nila. Mahirap na hanapin doon sa mga lugar na yan. Dahil nagtatago sila dyan at walang tumutulong sa kanila. And maaari din ikapahamak ng police officers. No, dahil nga yung mga tao doon, wala silang pakialam. Let those who are guilty remain free while making the innocent unjustly suffer. No, so the reason why we need to promote and protect human rights. And it will delay or deny justice to be given to victims of the crime and their families kung hindi mapoprotektahan yung human rights. As they say, justice delayed is justice denied. Ibig sabihin, kung matagal, no, bago makuha yung justice. It is like the justice was not given to the victims and their families. And subject the police and other government agencies to local and international criticism and possible sanctions. Actually, there were some issues, diba, when it comes to human rights nung nagkaroon ng drug war. But those were allegations, not yet proven. Okay? And what else? Make the law enforcer a law breaker. Kung hindi mapopromote and mapoprotektahan yung human rights. Thus, the pressing need for the PNP to pursue vigorously the implementation of policies, mechanisms, and programs on human rights-based policy. Actually, we have this human rights-based policy. No. But we will not further elaborate this one. Okay? Dahil nga limited lang tayo with the rights of the accused. Okay, now let's talk about the constitutional rights of the accused. So, ano yung mga rights ng accused na makikita natin in our Constitution? So, let's now start. Makikita niyo yan, no, in the Article 3 of the 1987 Constitution, particularly Sections 11 to 19. Ano yung makikita natin dyan? The due process of law, presumption of innocence, right to be heard by himself and the counsel, right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation against him, the speedy, impartial, and public trial, and meet witnesses face-to-face, compulsory process to secure the attendance of the witnesses, and production of evidence in his behalf. So these are the rights of the accused. First, yung due process of law. Yan, hindi po pwede na may decision na kaagad. Hindi pa man nagkaroon na trial. Diba? So, dapat may due process of law. How will that happen? Yan, through actually all of this. So, paano natin ma-attain yung due process of law? Yan. One of the rights of the accused is the presumption of innocence. The accused must be presumpted innocent, or hanggat hindi pa napapatunayan in court that this person is guilty, we cannot say that this person is guilty. And hanggat hindi pa nagbibigay ng decision ng court na guilty ang taong to, still we will treat this person as an innocent person. No? And we assume that this person is innocent kahit na siya yung accused. Diyan. Kaya nga may trial tayo to determine kung guilty nga ba talaga tong taong to or hindi. And actually, yung rights ng accused, no, mas marami compared to the other party. Ang may maraming rights ay yung accused. No? Actually, the law is lenient to the accused. No? The law tilts towards the weight of the accused. And actually, mas matimbang yung rights ng accused when it comes to the court. Yan. And these are all found sa ating Constitution, even statutory rights. And the rights na makikita nyo rin sa inyong Republic Act 7438. Actually, mas marami rights si accused compared sa kabilang party. Okay? So, what else? Right to be heard by himself and the counsel. Of course, doon sa ating arraignment, and the accused will declare or will plead guilty or not guilty. It is upon him. Hindi po pwedeng i-dictate kay accused na mag-plead na lang siya ng guilty. Hindi po pwedeng gawin yan. Hindi po pwedeng pilitin yung accused na magbigay ng confession. Hindi siya po pwedeng pilitin na magsabi na siya ay guilty. And of course, andyan yung kanyang counsel to represent him. Yan, in all pleadings, in all trials, in all proceedings. Okay, right to be informed of the nature and the cause of the accusation against him. Yan, mangyayari din yan during the arraignment. The accused will be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation against him. Yan. And, of course, if there is a warrant, the warrant was served to him during the arrest. And dun din yung time na na-inform siya. Dapat, nature and cause of the accusation against him. Of course, karapatan niya yan. Hindi siya po pwedeng basta na lang mag-undergo ng trial na hindi niya alam kung bakit siya nandoon. Speedy, impartial, and public trial. And speedy, dapat, mabilis naman yung trial. Hindi naabutin ng 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years bago matapos yung case. Bakit? Dahil nga nakadetain yung tao siya. And hindi pa natin alam if the person is guilty or not guilty. One of the unfortunate events, yung iba, nakulong na sila ng 5 years, 10 years. And then later on, hindi naman pala sila guilty. Yan. Ang verdict ng court is not guilty. Pero anong nangyari? Nasayang na yung panahon nila na sila yung nakakulong doon, di ba? May babalik pa ba yun? Of course, hindi na. Okay? Impartial, ibig sabihin dapat patas, dapat fair. Walang pinapanigan ang court. And public trial. Yan. You can actually observe some trials. Pero may mga confidential trials kasi. Lalo na yung mga nasa family court. Okay? Ang sinasabi dito, public trial. The public should also be informed of the proceedings or the status of the case. Hindi po pwede na gawin din yung trial in a solitary place. Yan, na malayo sa kabihasnan or malayo sa access ng ibang tao. It is not allowed. Okay, meet witnesses face to face. It happens during trial. Okay, compulsory process to secure the attendance of the witnesses. And there are witnesses that he can also produce. And witnesses din ang kabilang party. And production of evidence in his behalf. Pwede rin siyang mag-present ng evidence to prove that he is innocent of the accusation against him. Okay, other parts ng ating 1987 Constitution and laws are also parts ng ating rights. Or they also state our rights. Your Republic Act 7438, it contains the rights of persons arrested, detained, or under custodial investigation, and duties of the arresting, detaining, and investigating officers. Kasama din sa rights, the Republic Act 9262, it also contains rights, particularly for women and children. And this is the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children, and your Republic Act 9344, or the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act. So this exists to promote and protect the rights of persons in all sectors of our society. Okay. Next, let's talk about custodial investigation. It was mentioned earlier sa ating Republic Act 7438. So, ano nga ba ang custodial investigation. It is any questioning by law enforcement after a person has been taken into custody. So take note, no? After the person has been taken into custody or otherwise deprived of his freedom of action in any significant way. As long as this person was already deprived of his freedom of action. And your custodial investigation refers to the investigation conducted by law enforcement immediately after arrest or the commission of an offense. So, this custodial investigation happens, for example, this person was already arrested or taken into custody. And they will conduct the custodial investigation, the questioning of the law enforcement. Questioning with regards to the offense committed. Ayan. And when does it begin? Kailan nag-umpisa yan? It begins when a person has been arrested and brought to the custody of law enforcers, in which suspicion is focused on him. In particular, and questions are asked from him, the suspect, to elicit admissions or information on the commission of an offense. Custodial investigation, questioning of your law enforcement. Kailan nangyayari yan? After na-arrest ng isang tao or the person was deprived of his freedom of action. And this is done to elicit what? Admissions or makakuha ng information in the commission of the offense. Okay, so we will further elaborate this sa mga slides natin. Okay, so your Republic Act 7438 contains the rights of a person arrested, detained, or under custodial investigation. Whether this person is arrested or naka-detain na talaga yan, no, or under custodial investigation. The duties of the arresting, detaining, and investigating officers are all in your Republic Act 7438. Yan. Now, ano nga ba ang rights, no, ng isang tao if this person is already subjected to custodial investigation? And so these are the important things that we should remember. And you can also find them in the section 2 of your Republic Act 7438. Ano nga ba ang nilalaman ng ating, or anong important parts, no, ng ating Republic Act 7438? Or ano yung mga rights ng isang tao under custodial investigation? First, no, number 1, the right to be informed of his rights. Ayan. We need to inform this person being subjected to custodial investigation his rights. Ano yung example dyan? Paano natin magagawa yung duty niya? And the reading of Miranda Doctrine. Or the custodial rights. Actually, your Miranda Doctrine contains the custodial rights. So, during arrest, dapat basahan mo na yan ng Miranda Doctrine. Habang ina-aresto mo yan, basahan mo yan, sabihan mo yan ng Miranda Doctrine. And make sure na naiintindihan niya ang Miranda Doctrine. Okay. That is an important duty of a police officer. Yan, lalo na habang nag-a-arrest. No? Wag na wag ninyong kakalimutan yan. If you would become police officer someday, do not ever forget Miranda Doctrine, Miranda rights kapag kayo ay nag-a-arrest na. Okay, this carries the correlative obligation on the part of the investigator to explain and contemplate effective communication, which results in the subject understanding what is conveyed. So, yan na yung chance natin to inform this person of his rights. And dapat, dyan pa lang sa arrest na yan, masabi na natin ano yung rights ng taong yan. Okay? And the right to remain silent and to be reminded that anything he says can and will be used against him. So, dyan na papasok, no, yung confession and admission. Bakit sinasabihan natin siyang may karapatan siyang manahimik? Because anything that he would say, it might lead to confession or admission that can be used against him. So, yeah. So this refers not only to verbal confessions, but even sa acts. No? And however, mechanical acts that does not require the use of intelligence, such as providing DNA samples or to answer general questions, are not protected under these rights. And there's one question. If the person was asked to provide his fingerprints, so kukuhanan siya ng fingerprint, o pwede ba siyang tumanggi na kuhanan siya ng fingerprint? The answer is no. Hindi siya po pwedeng tumanggi. Why? It does not require the use of intelligence. Gagamitan mo ba ng isip yan? Magbibigay ka lang ng fingerprint. You will just provide your fingerprint to the fingerprint technician. Of course, hindi. Or, kung ang hinihingi is DNA samples, no? Kung pwede bang tumanggi dyan? No. Yan. Kapag ka ang nire-require, it requires use of intelligence, no? Kung pwede nyong gamitin yung right against self-incrimination. Hindi po pwede yun. Or for example, ang hinihingi, sumulat ka ng confession. So, pwede bang tumanggi doon? Yes. Dahil nga, it requires the use of intelligence. Okay? So, do not forget that those are some confusing questions that might be asked. Yan. So, yung mga hindi kasama sa rights na yan, no, yung pag-provide mo ng, for example, yan, samples nga, fingerprints, yan. As long as hindi nagre-require ng intelligence, na kailangan, na nire-require na ibigay no, ng accused, hindi niya po pwedeng tanggihan yan. Hindi siya po pwedeng mag-refuse dyan because it does not use his intelligence. For example, ang case is a rape case. And nakakita doon ng pubic hairs, seminal fluids. Yan. Now, kailangan kuha na ng DNA sample. Ito ang si accused. Yan, to examine if those samples are his or not. Or there were fingerprints found in the crime scene. So, yan yung mga examples na hindi kasama under this right. Okay? Yan. Next, right to an attorney or to counsel. Preferably of his own choice. If not, one will be provided for him. Now, remember that this right is absolute. Absolute yung right na yan. Hindi yan kaagad-agad na matatanggal. And it applies even if the accused himself is a lawyer. Kahit na lawyer yung accused, meron pa rin siyang right to an attorney or a counsel. Ayan. And, of course, ano ba yung qualities dapat ni attorney or ni counsel? Independent and competent. Independent. This is not hampered, no? This person should not be hampered with any conflicts of interest. And competent, pag sinabi natin competent, dapat siya ay credible. Dapat siya ay vigilant in protecting the rights of the accused. Next, right of the accused during custodial investigation is your right against torture, force, violence, threat, intimidation, or any other means which vitiate the free will of a person. So if you become a law enforcer someday, and do not ever torture this person para lang mag-elicit ng confession or admission dahil bawal na bawal yan. It is even stated in our Constitution. If you would commit that, kayo ang possible na makasuhan dyan. Another right is the right against secret detention places, solitary, incommunicado, or other similar forms of detention. And once you have arrested the person or the accused or the suspect, the subject of the warrant of arrest, anong gagawin? Bring the person to the nearest police station. So, dalhin niyo yan sa pinakamalapit na police station. No? Huwag siyang dadalhin in secret detention places just to elicit confession. Doon nyo siya paaaminin. Dadalhin nyo siya dun sa mga liblib na lugar. Do not do that. That is not allowed. Solitary, no? Or incommunicado. The access or the communication is difficult in that place. No? And so, if these detentions are similar to this, no, bawal dalhin siya yung ating accused. No? And bring them to the proper authorities. And remember that any confession or admission obtained from the person arrested in violation of his rights. So, for example, no, you violated those rights. And tinorture nyo tong si accused para makuha yung kanyang confession. Umamin siya because he was tortured or may threat sa buhay niya. Yan. And that confession will be inadmissible in evidence. It will not be accepted in court. It cannot be used against that person. And this is called the exclusionary rule. Actually, ito sa law subject, yun na yan. No? Your exclusionary rule states that these types of evidence or this confession or admission that were elicited from the violations of the rights of the accused are excluded from the evidence to be considered by the court during trial. And such confession or admission is tainted and must be suppressed under the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. If you still remember, the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. So all of those elicited from the violation of the rights of these accused are not admissible, are inadmissible in court. Hindi nyo yan magagamit sa court. These are all part of the fruit of the poisonous tree. And the reason why it is inadmissible, because it is stated in your exclusionary rule. Okay? So next, do rights of a suspect during custodial investigation attach as soon as he is invited to the police station to be investigated in connection with an offense he is suspected to have committed. Or, let's make it simple. May custodial rights na ba itong suspect kung siya ay naimbitahan na sa police station? For example, he was invited to by the police officers to come to the police station to answer some questions with regards to the offense he have committed. And the answer there is yes. Okay, ang practice ng issuing of invitation to a person who is investigated in connection with an offense he is suspected to have committed is part of custodial investigation. So, once na naimbitahan na yan, may custodial rights na yan. Parte na yan ng kanyang or itong invitation na yan, part na yan ng custodial investigation. So, as such, rights of a person under Section 12, Article 3 of the Constitution are attached. And sa ating 7438, it also attaches. Okay? So, dyan nagsisimula yung rights. Okay? So, do not forget that. However, the rights of a suspect during custodial investigation do not generally attach in the following situations. And of course, for every rule, there is an exception. So, here are your exception to the rule. So, first, yung ating police line-up or during process of identification. And if you still remember yung police line-up ninyo or kung hindi ninyo napasadahan si police line-up, and I think you are familiar naman dyan. And this is a process of identification. So, ang gagawin, no, there are multiple suspects na nandyan and may victim tayo who would identify or maybe witness. No, victim or witness na mag-identify kung sino sa kanila. Ituturo niya sa kanila kung sino yung nag-commit no, ng crime. So, magkakaroon ng line-up dyan. For example, may 4 na suspect dyan. Ayan. Ano yung gagawin? Ipapakita yung mukha nila, kung yan ba yung nakita ni witness or ni victim doon. Or pagsasalitain din sila. No, para marinig yung boses. If that is the voice that was heard by the witness or the victim. Yan ang police lineup. You also have, I think you have seen that, maybe in some movies or some shows, no, if not in person. Ayan. Or in news. Diba? Ang gagawin, may mga suspects dyan. Yan na nakalinya. Ngayon, nandito yung victim or yung witness. Ituturo niya kung sino sa kanila yung totoong nag-commit ng crime. So, that is a police line-up. And generally, hindi pa dyan nag-a-attach yung rights ng ating accused. What else? Spontaneous statements, not elicited through questioning, but given in an ordinary manner. O yung mga nabanggit nila out of the moment. Yan, mga spur of the moment statements, they are considered as parts of the state. Or yung mga volunteered statements mismo galing sa kanila. Or extrajudicial admission to the prosecutor or a private person. Sa mga media personnel or sa mga TV interviews. And what else? Investigation made by a citizen or private security officer. They don't generally attach with these situations. Okay? Yeah. So take note, that it is only when the police investigation is no longer a general inquiry into an unsolved crime but has begun to focus on the particular suspect who had been taken into custody. We're talking about here your custodial investigation. It begins when accusatory questions are initiated. When a person is taken into custody and deprived of his freedom of action. Yan, the rights during the custodial investigation. Okay? And so it attaches by that time that they start the accusatory questions. Okay? Yan. Okay, now, what is the correct procedure for arresting officers to follow when making arrest in conducting custodial investigation? So, ano ba yung correct procedure for that? At the time a person is arrested, it shall be the duty of the arresting officers to inform him of the reason for the arrest. And he must be shown the warrant of arrest. But I have mentioned, if the showing of warrant arrest will imperil the arrest, yan, pwede naman gawin yan at the police station. But, ang wag ninyong kakalimutan during the arrest is to inform him of his rights. Or, basahan nyo siya ng Miranda rights niya. And make sure that this person understands the Miranda rights read to him. Okay? So, the person arrested shall have the right to communicate with his lawyer or yung kanyang relative or anyone he chooses by the most expedient means, by telephone, if possible, or by letter or messenger. Ano yung pinakamabilis ngayon actually, diba, sa messenger na. Yan. And you can also use mobile phones to call them. Okay? And it shall be the responsibility of the arresting officer to see to it that this is accomplished. Dapat, may bibigay natin, na provide natin yung rights na yan ng accused. Yan. And no custodial investigation shall be conducted unless it be in the presence of counsel engaged by the person arrested. Don't forget na kailangan natin ng presence ng custodial or ng counsel during custodial investigation. Okay? Before you conduct that, make sure na andyan yung ating counsel. Ang counsel ni person arrested or any person on his behalf or appointed by the court upon petition either of the detainee himself or by anyone in his behalf. Do not ever conduct custodial investigation na wala si counsel ni person arrested or ang taong in-appoint ni court on the behalf of this person. Okay? And the right to counsel may be waived, but the waiver shall not be valid unless made with the assistance of a counsel. Kung pwedeng mag-waive ng right to counsel, pero kailan lang yan maaaring i-waive? If the waiver is made with the assistance of a counsel. Okay? Yan, dun lang po pwedeng ma-waive ang right to counsel. Hindi pwede na sinabi lang ni person arrested, hindi ko na kailangan ng lawyer. Kaya ko na itong mag-isa. Hindi ko na kailangan si lawyer. Yan. Pero, wala naman yung, or hindi ito ituturing na valid dahil na walang assistance ng counsel. Okay? And any statement obtained in violation of the procedure that we have stated, whether exculpatory or inculpatory in full or in part, shall be inadmissible in evidence. And you can find this in People versus Pinlac. Okay, next slide na tayo. Yan. So, United Nations also prescribed the UN Code of Conduct for our law enforcement officials. This will serve as the guide of our law enforcement officers. So, we have 8 articles here. Ano ba yung 8 na yan? Number 1, always perform duties under the law. Ibig sabihin, dapat lahat ng ating actions na gagawin, lahat ng duties, may legal basis. It should be under the law. And the most important weapon of a law enforcement officer is it is not a gun, not the baton, and not the uniform, but the knowledge of the law. Yan ang pinaka-importanting weapon ng ating law enforcement officers. Why? Because they are the ones who implement the law. If they do not know the law, anong i-implement nila? Paano nila malalaman na legal ang ginagawa nila if they do not know the law? So, yan ang pinaka-important weapon of the law enforcement officers, ng police officers. And number 2, sa 8 articles natin from the United Nations is the respect and safeguard of human rights. So, our law enforcement officers need to respect and safeguard our human rights and use force only when strictly necessary. So, we will also discuss this one sa ating mga susunod na discussions. Yan, the use of force. So, dapat may maximum tolerance. Okay? Yan, gamitin lang yung force kapag kinakailangan. Dehado naman na ang ating police officers. Still, they need to preserve their lives. Kung kailangan na talagang gamitin yung force, gagamitin na yan. Okay? Dahil, kung hindi, what will happen? Sila din yung mapapahamak dito. Yan. And, respect confidentiality. Yan. Yung cases natin, should be considered confidential. Especially, yung mga cases ng minors. Yan. And, for women and children, okay? That's why we treat them with confidentiality. Hindi yung ilalabas pa sa public or i-chismis yung mga cases that they have handled, which are confidential in nature. Okay? And number 5, never inflict any act of torture or ill treatment, especially sa mga accused or for persons arrested. Okay, number 6, safeguard the health of all those who are in custody. Sa mga nasa lock-up, jails natin. Okay, sa mga lock-up cells natin in the police stations. So we have to make sure that we are also promoting their health. Bakit? What will happen? Kung may contagious disease yung isa, what will happen? Mahahawa lahat. And even yung mga nasa labas. And that is a big problem. And make sure na may proper ventilation din dun sa loob. Okay? Number 7, never commit any act of corruption. Nasa Republic Act 6713 din natin yan. And respect the law and this code. So those are the 8 articles from your UN Code of Conduct for Law Enforcement Officials. Okay? Yan. So moreover, there are new national laws on human rights and international humanitarian law. That must be studied and understood by all PNP personnel. These new laws include your Republic Act 9745 or the Anti-Torture Law, your Republic Act 10350 or the Anti-Enforced or Involuntary Disappearance Law. So we also have Republic Act 9851 or the International Humanitarian Law Act of 2009 or more formally Act defining and penalizing crimes against international humanitarian law, genocide, and other crimes against humanity. So if you are not familiar with these laws, pwede nyo nang i-familiarize yourselves with these laws that we have. We have a lot of laws. And it is important that we know these laws. Diba? We familiarize ourselves with these laws. Let's talk about some definition of terms. So we have the term here, accountability. And so when you say accountability, it is a recognition that the purpose for existence of the PNP is to what? Serve and protect the public. And as declared in our Constitution, since all power and authority of the government emanates from the people, it is the obligation of the police to remain fully accountable to the people. The police are responsible for their job, which is to protect, which is to serve the public. They are accountable for their actions. Okay? Of course, we are also accountable for our actions. And if the job was not done, or the job was done improperly, or hindi nagawa ng maayos, hindi nagawa ng tama, or hindi nagawa ang job, the police officers will be accountable for that. Accountability means that the PNP has obligations to the people or claim holders of human rights in terms of conduct and results. So, trabaho ng police officers to promote our rights, our human rights. And all PNP personnel are accountable to the people for all their actions and the consequences of those actions. And you will also find that accountability sa mga principles that we apply in the law enforcement. Okay? What else? Non-discrimination. So this is about providing police service to all persons without any bias or prejudice. For example, merong pumunta doon sa police station, siya ay nakasuot ng maiksing damit, nakasuot ng mataas na heels, nakikita yung kanyang cleavage, at siya ay nagrereklamo na siya daw ay binastos. And hindi po pwedeng i-discriminate yan ng police officers. Kahit na ganyan yung appearance niya nung dumating siya sa police station. Kailangan pa rin na i-entertain yung taong yan. They need to provide police service, regardless of the appearance of the person or the status of the person. The PNP must serve all persons, with utmost professionalism, competence, courtesy, and respect regardless of age, sex, race, or ethnic origin, gender or sexual orientation, social and economic status, or any other status. So, hindi dahil gano'n ang itsura niya, nang pumunta siya sa police station, paalisin na siya. Okay? Dahil hindi naaayon or hindi kaaya-aya ang kanyang appearance. Ayan. And let's talk about human dignity. So, as a principle means that the PNP values the inherent and immutable dignity of every person at all times, without exception. It also entails provision of special services or measures that meet the unique needs, especially those who are poor, vulnerable, or marginalized sectors of our society. Sila talaga yung higit na nangangailangan ng tulong. And we also have the term rule of law. It is the observance of the principles and values of justice, equity, fairness, and impartiality in all police policies, plans, decisions, procedures, and all other actions related to law enforcement and public safety. Or simply saying, kailangan natin sundin, no? Or kailangan sundin ang ating laws, no? Whether they are policies, plans, and all of those that are part, no, of the organization that maintains the discipline of the police officers. Ayan. So here's our references for further reading.